Okay, hello again, everyone. Welcome and happy Year of the Snake. Thank you for joining today's webinar where we're going to discuss the outbound travel over the recent Chinese New Year holiday period, including a deep dive on one of the top Chinese travel trends right now, which is self-driving tourism. My name is Sienna Perulis Cook, and I'm Dragon Trail's Director of Marketing and Communications. Joining us today as a special guest speaker is Keiko Zhang, Director of Marketing at Zuzuche, which is China's leading car rental platform. Zuzuche always has a huge amount of really interesting data on Chinese outbound tourism and great reports, so we're very excited to have them with us today.
Thank you.
We're going to start off the webinar today with all the results of the 2025 Chinese New Year holiday, focusing mostly on outbound travel, but with some of the top-line domestic travel data too. With results from government agencies, travel agencies and travel websites, flight analytics companies, and mobile payments, we'll share and analyze all of the top travel trends from this past Spring Festival holiday. Then we'll narrow in on one specific trend, which is self-driving tourism, and Keiko will take over to present an overview of China's self-driving travel market, as well as Zuzuche's results from the 2025 Chinese New Year holiday. At the end of the presentation, we'll open things up for Q&A. You can send in questions at any point during the webinar using the Q&A button on your Zoom control panel, and then we'll answer as many questions as we can at the end of the webinar during the Q&A session. Another thing to note is that we are recording this webinar, and later today we'll share a link to the recording online as well as all of the presentation slides from today. So you'll have all of the data that we share today to look back on yourself or to share with colleagues who you think might be interested in it too. In case you're attending a Dragon Trail webinar for the first time, I wanted to briefly introduce who we are. Dragon Trail is a marketing solutions company. We're headquartered in Beijing, and since our founding 15 years ago, we have focused on marketing for Chinese outbound tourism, working with destinations, hotels, airlines, attractions, car rental companies, and other travel brands all around the world to help them reach Chinese consumers and the Chinese travel trade. Our services include B2B and B2C digital marketing and content creation, offline, virtual, and hybrid events, research and strategy consulting, and market representation services. You can find a lot more information about our services and case studies of our work, as well as lots of free resources on Chinese travel and marketing trends on our website, www.dragontrail.com. So let's dive into the results of the 2025 Chinese New Year holiday. Also known as the Spring Festival or Lunar New Year, this is the most important traditional holiday on the Chinese calendar, and it's also the peak time of year for travel, both in terms of people traveling home to spend the holiday with their family and tourism within and outside of China. It's now also the longest public holiday in China since the Chinese government decided to add an extra day starting in 2025 to give workers 8 consecutive days off. We'll start with domestic travel, which set a new all-time record with 501 million trips. This is 5.9% ahead of last year. At the same time, travel spending increased by 7% year over year to 677 billion renminbi. We can see from the chart here that in 2023, when China was just emerging from COVID-related travel restrictions, which were ended for domestic travel at the end of 2022, Chinese New Year travel was lower than pre-pandemic, with just 308 million trips. But by last year, it grew significantly to totally bounce back and exceed 2019's levels with 474 million trips. This year, the year-on-year growth is definitely more moderate, but it's still healthy. And as I mentioned before, it's the highest number of domestic travelers ever. The progress for outbound travel has some similarities, but also some big differences, as we'll see. So in 2019, we had the all-time high of 6.31 million outbound trips during Chinese New Year. Then the pandemic came and wiped out Chinese outbound travel. By Chinese New Year 2023, outbound travel for tourism was allowed, but the number of countries that could accept group travel at that point was still very low, and international flight capacity was still quite low as well. So we only saw 1.44 million outbound trips during Chinese New Year 2023. Then last year, the market showed very significant recovery with 3.6 million outbound trips. However, as you can also see, this is pretty far off the pre-pandemic numbers. This year, the China Tourism Academy has reported 3.78 million outbound trips. So this is still only around 60% of pre-pandemic numbers. And the growth rate from last year of 5.2% compared to last year is very similar to the growth rate that we're seeing for domestic travel too. So it looks like we've potentially reached a new normal base level, and we might expect more moderate, steady growth from the market from now on, rather than a dramatic surge like the one we saw between 2023 and 2024. But that said, just looking at these really big overall numbers does not tell the whole story. As we'll see, there are numerous destinations that are definitely exceeding pre-pandemic figures in terms of Chinese visitation. And some of the biggest travel agencies have also reported much more significant growth than this. So for example, cross-border travel bookings on Ctrip during Chinese New Year grew by 30% year on year. And this perhaps reflects the higher growth of independent Chinese travel compared to more traditional group tourism, as well as some consolidation in the Chinese travel agencies. International flight capacity from China was back to nearly 90% of pre-pandemic levels by the Chinese New Year, compared to just over 70% last year in 2024. We can see from this chart here, we don't have the exact numbers on it. It's the data from Flightmaster, but you can see the comparison of the top 20 outbound destinations in terms of the number of flights and also their recovery rate compared to 2019. But just to give you an idea of what some of those bars might represent more or less for number of flights. For Japan at the top there, that is probably around 1,100 flights, more or less. And then in the middle, you have the US, and they will be just under 100 flights. So that gives you an idea of kind of the scale that we're talking about here. We have seen a lot of recovery since last year. For instance, the flights between China and the US and Canada have recovered quite significantly since last year, although they're still far below what they were pre-pandemic. And we can also see that there are quite a few countries on this list, maybe around half of them, that actually now have more flights available than they did in 2019. So this includes Japan, Malaysia, Singapore, Vietnam, Russia, the UAE, the UK, Laos, Italy, New Zealand, and Qatar. So that's quite a number of destinations. Now, before we get into all the destination results, let's also have a look at some data about outbound spending during the Chinese New Year period from mobile payments platform Alipay. They reported a 30% year-on-year increase in the number of transactions overseas. The number of transactions in 2024 had already surpassed pre-pandemic levels, although the total transaction volume in 2024 was still just 82% of 2019's level. Alipay has not released data on the total transaction volume in 2025, so we don't know how much this compares with pre-pandemic or last year. However, they did release some data on the top destinations, which showed big increases in spending volume as well as transactions. So for example, Singapore, which was the most popular outbound destination for Alipay users, enjoyed a 56% year-on-year increase in total spend. And Japan also had an increase of 40% in total spending. Malaysia, Hong Kong, and South Korea were the other top destinations for Alipay users. The number of Alipay transactions in Europe increased by 30% year on year, and the top European destinations were the UK, France, and Italy, with Switzerland, Austria, and Turkey all enjoying notable increases, according to Alipay's report. One interesting tidbit from Alipay's report is that spending on cosmetic surgery overseas increased by an incredible 449% year on year. Spending on food also grew by at least 1/3, depending on the food category, with spending on desserts up by 50%. And Alipay spending on local transport methods like bus, subway, and ride-hailing platforms was up by 139%. Okay, so now let's talk about where Chinese travelers went over the holiday. There's a lot of data out there, so I've tried to put it all in one place here, and I'm going to try to highlight some of the many similarities over all these, among all these different destination lists from travel agencies, the China Tourism Academy, and travel website Mafengwo. These lists are not all measuring the same things. So for instance, some of the lists include Hong Kong and Macau as outbound destinations, but some of the lists only have international destinations beyond Greater China. Some of the lists, like Chunar's, is based on flight bookings, whereas Tongcheng's is based on hotel reservations. And the platforms are different from each other as well. So the people using Mafengwo, for instance, are more likely to be younger, independent travelers, whereas the people using Tunio, and we'll see their data on the next slide, because their data is split into two different lists for short haul and long haul destinations, but they're much more focused on the group travel market. But that said, despite all these differences, we can see a lot of similarities among all of the lists, and that's really where we can see what the major trends were. So there are actually 7 destinations that are on all 5 of the lists that you'll see here, as well as Tunio's lists on the next slide. The first one is Japan. Japan was really the big winner this Chinese New Year. Travel there has surged since last spring, with the weak yen making this popular destination more financially accessible. Flight data from Forward Keys showed that Chinese bookings to Japan actually doubled this Chinese New Year compared to last year, and they were 20% ahead of 2019. Usually the top destination for Chinese outbound tourism, Thailand has been having a much more difficult post-pandemic period than Japan, and many Southeast Asian neighbors, despite having a visa-free policy for Chinese tourists. The country has suffered a lot from safety concerns, and they've only reached about 60% of pre-pandemic levels of Chinese travelers. And these safety concerns actually got much worse just before the Chinese New Year holiday, when a famous Chinese actor was rescued from a human trafficking ring in Thailand. So this led to a wave of cancellations from Chinese visitors, and it has really pushed Thailand down in the rankings compared to where it used to be. That said, it still remains a hugely popular destination, and it's on all of these lists. Malaysia has been another really big winner in the post-pandemic era, thanks to its new visa-free policy, and Chinese tourism there already surpassed pre-pandemic levels last year. They continued to do very well over Chinese New Year, and Forward Keys reported that bookings there were 41% ahead of 2019. Similarly, Singapore is another visa-free winner in Southeast Asia, with flight bookings up 26% ahead of pre-pandemic levels, according to Forward Keys. Another success story and travel hotspot this Chinese New Year was Vietnam, with big increases in flight capacity and bookings. South Korea was also popular, especially Jeju Island in the south. OTA Tongcheng reported that flights between Qingdao and Seoul and between Shanghai and Jeju were 2 of the 5 most popular routes during the holiday period. And finally, there is one long-haul destination on each of these lists, and that is Australia, which is now almost fully recovered in terms of flight capacity, and China is on track to regain its position as Australia's #1 source market of international visitors in 2025. So here, as I mentioned before, is some extra OTA data from Tunio. They published 2 lists for short haul and long haul destinations. Again, we see Japan at list, followed by Thailand, and their top 10 list for short-haul destinations also includes Singapore, Malaysia, Vietnam, and South Korea. The Maldives was also very popular for travelers on Tunio, particularly families. For long-haul destinations, New Zealand was #1 for Tunio, followed by the UAE, Australia, Egypt, Russia, Turkey, Morocco, and then 3 groups of countries in Western Europe. 90% of these long-haul bookings were for group tour products. So looking beyond the destinations that just had the most number of bookings, who saw the biggest growth rates in Chinese tourism during the Spring Festival? Japan features here as well, and I think that underscores just how much this country is really standing out right now as a tourism hotspot. But most of the destinations with dramatic year-on-year growth tend to be long haul, including Hungary, Saudi Arabia, Norway, Iceland, Kenya, Russia, Spain, and France. Now I'd like to go over some of the biggest overall trends for Chinese New Year 2020, including domestic and international travel. The first one is maybe less of a trend and more of an essential characteristic of Chinese New Year travel, but it's also one that seems to get more and more significant every year, and that is the importance of this holiday period for family travel. It's the time of year to gather with family, and it also falls during one of the longest school holidays of the year, so it makes sense that family trips dominate at this time. On Mafengwa, 71.7% of trips were made by family groups over Chinese New Year. Tunio also reported that more than 60% of travelers were family groups, including both multi-generation groups that would include grandparents, parents, and children, as well as groups that are just parents and young children traveling together. Domestically, Tongcheng reported a 37% increase in bookings for family rooms at hotels. So that's definitely something that there's a market for. And for families also opted for outbound trips to island destinations, making up 65% of Tunio's travelers to the Maldives. As we've discussed in our webinar on Chinese family travel in November, this is really an important and high spending market segment, and it only seems to be growing. Domestically, the biggest trend for Chinese New Year tourism was intangible cultural heritage, with huge interest in historical, culturally rich destinations like Shantou in Guangdong, Kaifeng in Henan, and Xi'an. Chinese tourists attended many cultural performances for the New Year, as well as temple fairs and museums, and local traditional handicrafts were popular with holiday shoppers. In terms of source markets for outbound travel, Shanghai really stands out with the biggest numbers and the highest growth rate among Chinese cities. Shanghai residents definitely seem to be the most enthusiastic about foreign travel right now. But at the same time, visa-free travel and decreasing flight and hotel prices for some destinations are making outbound travel more accessible to residents of smaller towns and cities. And both Chunar and Tongcheng reported that outbound travel bookings by residents of cities classified as third tier or below at least doubled this year compared to last year. Some of the travel agencies and online platforms also shared more kind of deeper analysis about emerging travel trends that they've seen lately beyond just the big numbers about booking volumes and increases. So in general, there is a real movement, especially by younger travelers, towards more niche and off the beaten track destinations. And this is definitely something that can be facilitated by and also encouraged by social media, with travelers now able to do so much research with the help of user-generated content on platforms like Xiaohongshu. And then we also have niche user-generated content going viral on those platforms and then encouraging people to visit those more niche destinations. So we already know that Japan was the most popular outbound destination, but within Japan, there was also a surge in interest in smaller off the beaten track destinations, especially in northern Japan. Tongcheng reported that Sapporo was one of the 5 fastest growing destinations for flight bookings over Chinese New Year. Northern destinations in Europe were also very popular, especially with 2025 forecasted to be a standout year for the Northern Lights. Norway and Iceland were the third and fourth fastest growing destinations on Chunar, and Reykjavik and Oslo were also on Tongcheng's top 5 lists for the fastest growth in flight bookings. Travel website Mafanghua also picked up on the popularity of Arctic travel, highlighting Russia as well as Finland. And in the Southern Hemisphere, young Chinese travelers are also seeking out more niche destinations and experiences in nature, such as seeing koalas in the wild in Australia. And just a hint at some of the information you're about to hear from Zuzuche, self-driving travel continues to grow as a trend for outbound travel too. And it's the perfect way to get off the beaten track and visit some of those more niche destinations and explore destinations in more depth. Ctrip reported that overseas car rentals were up 42% year on year, with popular destinations including the US, the UAE, and Thailand. And I will leave the rest of that topic to Keiko. So just to summarize the main points before I hand over, Chinese New Year travel grew at a rate of just over 5% in 2025 compared to last year, and that was consistent for both the domestic and the outbound markets. It was not a dramatic increase on the whole, but it was still healthy growth, and some destinations saw much bigger increases. Japan really stands out as the leading outbound destination right now, while Thailand fell behind. Malaysia and Singapore continued to do really well. Australia was the leading long-haul destination, and we also saw significant growth for destinations around Europe and the Middle East. Tropical beach and island destinations were especially popular, and we also saw a strong interest in cultural tourism, niche destinations in cold climates, and experiencing nature. So now to share everything about self-driving travel, I'm very happy to introduce Keiko Zhang from Zuzuche.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Sienna. Let me share my screen. Did you see that? Okay, could you see that?
Yes. Yeah, looks great.
Okay. Okay, thank you, Sienna, and thank you, Dragon Trail. I'm Keiko, Marketing Director of Zuzuche. So today is my great honor to be here to share some insights and trends of outbound road trip in China markets. And I think today give us the road trip trend is more and more popular in China. So I think today's give us a great opportunity to have a deeper understanding about this business or trends. So for the very beginning, please allow me introduce our brands a little bit, because I think for those of you who are not really familiar with our brands. Zuzuche, we are founded in 2011, and we based in Guangzhou, and now is currently the largest and leading global road trip service platform in China. And our core services include domestic and overseas car rentals, but majorly overseas car rentals is our major business. And we cooperate with global partners like Avis, Hertz, Eurocars, Six, and Enterprise, and also the local suppliers in over 200 countries and regions. But there's someone say that we are a car rental platform, but also we are not only provide car rental services, but also we are provide a one-stop road trip solution to our customers, because we also provided documentation services, which is the first step for Chinese travelers can drive themselves aboard. And also we offered 24/7 hours customer support, because to break the language barrier for Chinese travelers. And the ticket booking, when our customers experience outbound road trip, they can also book a ticket or POI tickets during their journey. And also we have a tailor-made insurance kit, offline map navigation app. So nowadays we currently already served more than 30 million customers in that more than decades. But I think the road trip market is way bigger than that in China, because According to the report of Ministry of Transportation of People's Republic of China, during last year's National Days holiday, there are more than 80% Chinese travelers choose drive themselves domestically, which can be counted as 1.5 billion trips. And looking back this number, in 2020, the number is just 41%, which means the number is doubling after 4 years. So we can see the road tripping is emerging as a preferred method of travel in China markets. And how about for the outbound road trip markets? And as we all know that as a Chinese travelers, we don't have the IDP. So if we want to travel abroad or rent a car abroad, we need to gain a certified translation of driver license in advance, and which Zuzuche provide this kind of services. So as for Q4 of last year, we have already estimated as more than 20 million customers already completed that process on our platforms. And to gain this little white book, as you can see in the slides. And so that means we have a solid base of at least 20 million customers who are already on the road or who have a future plan for the outbound road trip. So that's why it brings us today. So today's topics will be divided into three major topics. I'm going to share you so where our customers love to go, and especially what's happened during this Spring Festival. And also, I will let you have a deeper understanding about what kind of customers who love outbound road trip. It's a little bit different from like group travel or other sectors. And then I think the most important thing is that how we do the marketing things and how we partner with our great partnership with our partners worldwide. So first, let's dive into the big trend of road trip and let's see where are our customers love to go to experience their outbound road trip. And according to our data of last year, most popular destination for outbound road trip or long-haul destination, such as United States, the Oceania countries, Australia and New Zealand, and also the European countries. As you can see, we have UK, Spain, France, Germany, and Norway, Italy. But also got some short-haul destination like Malaysia and Thailand, and even we have the UAE. Those three countries, I think, is an ideal road trip destination for people who want to experience road trip for the first time. Yeah, especially outbound road trip. And then what happened in this Spring Festival? During this Spring Festival, we have a top 5 pickup destination, as we have Australia and New Zealand, which are perfect for traveling in winter, and especially one is the more popular destination in winter. And we also have a United States, which is the one of the important outbound road trip destination on our platform too. And they also got really impressive growth rate, like 40%, more than 40% YY growth rates compared to last year's same period. And also we got Thailand on the list, and Norway, just like CNL or also mentioned that Norway really performs like a dark horse from last year's to this year's. So during this Spring Festival, with more than 300 to 26% YY growth, I think because the development of the internet and social media, so makes a lot of young travelers, they want to chase in the Northern Lights and they want to go to the Northern European countries. So we have more than 45% of our travelers were aged 21 to 35 who went to Norway for an outbound road trip. So which is impressive too. And the second top growing emerging destination will be Saudi Arabia. We got a 200% YY growth during this Spring Festival, because I think It just really impressive because in 2023, Saudi just opened the marketing strategy toward the China market, and they found us. We also signed an MOU with Saudi Arabia authorities, and under our efforts, and we just see Saudi's booking are growing continuously, and also got really impressive increasing year on year. And in summary, we also find out Chinese outbound self-drive travelers are increasingly seeking niche experience. So I also listing our fastest growing hidden gem road trip cities in 2024. As you can see, we have Hobart in Australia, where you can also chasing the Thousand Lights there. And also we have Alula in Saudi Arabia, which is where is a really, they have really fancy resorts there, and it's stunning heritage there. And also, and even we have Faroe Islands, which is a small island of Denmark. And for Chinese travelers, we even need to gain another visa to this island. But they extremely popular in last summer vacations. According to our customers and also suppliers, they told us they have barely no car to rent, and they can see Chinese travelers everywhere. So, which is a very interesting trend is happening in China markets. So after we have a general image about the trend of urban road trip, so let's see who are our customers, or who are going to be our potential customers. So after pandemic, we also find some shift of demographics. There's a 2 points. More and more young travelers are trying their urban road trip for the first time, and especially age 24 to 35. And the second trend is that we find out more and more female travelers. The she economy is on the rise in China, and more female drivers feel confident and independent and drive themselves to experience the outbound road trip. So I think that is important too, to make us to think about how to provide more convenient services to female drivers. And for the persona parts, most of our customers are come from tier 1 and new tier 1, tier 2 cities. And family groups are also one of the important segments for our road trip too. They have a stronger purchasing power, and they have a longer vacation with their kids. And or perhaps they not only bring their kids, they also will bring their elder parents. So this like a numbers of groups will experience outbound road trip. And most of our customers are loyal customers. Once they experience the outbound road trip, they will definitely try again because they feel comfortable, and they can feel some freedom of the experience here. So they will definitely back to our platforms and to choose the outbound road trip if they can in the next destinations. Okay, so for this Spring Festival, for the gender parts, we can see the female parts is increasing too, and especially that more than 30% female drivers are aged 55 and above. The silver generation, like sort of segment here, and we also can see a trend is for silver generation tourism, which is another interesting point and trend and happening in the China tourism industry right now. And for the booking lead time, most of our customers will book 2 to 4 weeks in advance. But especially for long haul destination, they will book even earlier, like 1 month and 2 months in advance. But for some short haul destination like Thailand or Malaysia, they have direct flights, convenience, and also the visa-free policies. So people perhaps will rent a car within 7 days. So it depends on the destination, the distance of destination. So they will make this a little bit different. And in general, during this Spring Festival, our customers show a phenomenon like stay longer and rent larger. So for the average rental length of this Brands Festival can be counted as 6.2 days with 7% YY growth. And additionally, booking for 7-seat cars surged by 262%, which is really impressive and interesting because we think the family groups is increasing. So they definitely have, they need a spacious vehicles and also chasing a more comfortable road trip experience. So this is kind of the Spring Festival's trend. So let's move to the next part. So how we boost the market, because outbound road trip is not an easy thing to promote in China. And so how we can do till today. So I also will bring some case studies for your reference to have some ideas. But before I share the marketing things, I think it's important to know, to understand what our customers need, because this is logic, this is the foundation and base that our business provide a service to our customers. So as you can see, there's a lot of challenges that a Chinese travelers who want to have an outbound road trip. And it can be divided into three major parts. From pre-travel parts, perhaps you will think what kind of documentation you need to use or which reliable car rental brands you need to choose. Insurance kits, payments, and also itineraries, how to plan a outbound road trip. And even on the road, unfortunately, if your car just broken on the road, and who else you can ask for help? If they can speak English, or if they can speak Chinese, no. So we can see a lot of questions and issues will be happened on the road. So that's why we founded. For decades, for more than decades, we insist provide a unique and consistent brand commitment to our customers because we have a comprehensive services into each of this stage of to make sure the whole process and the journey will be smoothly. And besides the comprehensive service system, but also the marketing strategy is made us notice that it's not an easy thing to promote outbound road trip because there's a lot of barrier need to break. So for the very beginning, we have already noticed that we need to play a key role in influencing our customers' decision-making process, and especially for the interest parts, like even they don't have any destination decide, but we can tell them you can experience a outbound road trip for the first time, or perhaps this, like New Zealand is a ideal road trip destination. You can explore more. So like this, we do a lot of content marketing during this part. So with these two logics make us achieve more than 70% repurchase rates. So that's how our business run until today. Okay, so in China, we all know that the social media really plays a crucial role in the decision-making journey in China. It's a little bit different from the Western countries because in China, we will use social media do everything. Like especially for travel, we will inspire by Red or Douyin, and also we will also using the same platform to search everything we need. So in 2018, we already noticed that. So we built our own pro social media team to build a leading road trip brand on social media with more than 80 metrics accounts and gain more than 300 million impressions monthly. So this is one of the most important external channels we do the marketing things in China. So with these tours and with our platforms tours, we help a lot of our partners to drive their bookings or drive visitors or drive both of our business. So let's see. We have more than 50 partnership with tourism boards, and especially for example, Tourism New Zealand, we have a decade partnership with them. And with a decade, we successfully help New Zealand to build a ideal road trip destination in China. According to TNZ's official data, the Chinese self-drive travelers rose from 20% in 2018 to in 2018 to 39% in 2023. So which is a huge improvement during that time. And also we take highly responsibility to the road safety issues. And so did TNZ. And also, so last year we cooperate with the Embassy of People's Republic of China in New Zealand. And also with TNZ, we co-launch a lot of online activities and also e-book tours, like to promote the road safety issues and to let our customers to know. And then not only the tourism boards, we think also we don't sell the flights directly, but we have a close relationship with airlines partners. Like Singapore Airlines, we have cooperate with KrisFlyer Miles, and also we have a good relationship with China Southern Airlines or Eastern Airlines, and we often do the cooperation with tourism boards, perhaps promote a direct flight or perhaps promote their discount, and especially during the off-peak season. And also Hong Kong Express, last year we have a cooperation with them during the May Day holiday, and they offer us 100 free tickets to our customers and engage our customers in advance. So there's a lot of airlines cooperation opportunities that I think is a great idea, that flight plus drive can be a combo and to promote together to the market. And also we have current partners have a lot of we have a multiple different methods for them, like to help them increasing the brand exposure or using our internal marketing tools to drive the bookings growth. Not only the related tourism industries partners, but also we have some extra partners like car brands. The Durant Guild, last year they just found us because they want to launch a new car in China market. So they found us and we co-launch a campaign on our platform to gain the potential customers' clues through our platforms. So which is interesting too. And also we have a good relationship with Gaoder Map, Alipay, and Flaky. And for the financial partners, we also have Visa, UnionPay, and MasterCard. So as you can see, our partners is from different sectors. So there's no boundary here. And also we have luxury hotels and luxury shopping village like the Bicester collection. So in summary, I just want to say, as Zuzuche, we are so open and interesting in exploring more interesting cooperation opportunities with anybody. So if you are interested in cooperating with us, or you want to learn more details about Zuzuche, and please no hesitate, reach us via email or linking or some other contacts. So here's my presentation today, and thank you for your time.
Oh, thank you so much, Keiko. Now, before we head to the Q&A session, I'm just going to share my screen again. All right. I just wanted to share a few more examples and ideas about how travel brands can tap into China's.
Yeah. So you want me to share again?
Oh, no, no, I have my slide here. I just have one more slide to
Okay,
share
okay.
and then it'll be the Q&A. But yeah, yeah, thank you so much. I took lots of notes on your presentation. And some of the growth numbers are very interesting, and especially kind of the growth of female drivers. So I
Yes.
think there's a lot of interesting data to take away there.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I just wanted to mention some other examples that I've seen over the past 7 or 8 years of tapping into the self-driving tourism trend for destination marketing and other kinds of brand marketing. So self-driving guides are often quite popular pieces of content published on WeChat by tourism boards. And I can think of some especially successful examples from Canada, from Germany, from Spain and the Canary Islands. So this is it's really a good topic for destination marketing for anywhere that's getting Chinese self-driving tourists, and anywhere that wants to put out helpful and attractive information for independent travelers. The best article content on self-driving travel tends to have a theme. So fall foliage in Canada, Christmas markets in Germany, food or literature in Spain, just to share a few real examples. In addition to article content, self-driving can also be used as a theme for a bigger destination marketing campaign. For example, Dragon Trail worked with the German Tourism Board and Lufthansa to launch an H5 self-driving guide in 2016. In 2018, we worked with Visit Florida to run a KOL campaign to position Florida as the USA's best road trip destination. We sent 5 travel influencers around the state in cars sponsored by Hertz. And the influencers posted about their itineraries and their favorite attractions. And we also created a mini site with guides to different parts of Florida, including video content, photos, and descriptions, recommended venues. And in the end, that campaign received more than 57 million views. Dragon Trail has worked with a few leading car rental companies over the years, including Hertz, Avis, and Europcar. And last year, we started tracking car rental companies in our WeChat rankings. And we will now be including information on trends and standout WeChat content from international car rental companies on a regular basis when we publish our quarterly WeChat reports. In addition, just to share some information I've seen already in the last year of tracking those car rental companies on WeChat, in addition to practical information and sales promotions, we've already noticed that car rental companies can get more views for content that taps into current tourism trends and popular destinations. So for example, Hertz's guide last year to self-driving in Norway. So if you're a destination, a car rental company, or other business that would like to find out more about digital marketing to attract Chinese outbound travelers, and how Dragon Trail can support you with your marketing activities, please do get in touch with us after the webinar to request more information and set up a meeting. I'd also like to remind you that you can find lots more information on Chinese travel trends and data, including Dragon Trail's consumer sentiment reports and travel trade surveys, our social media rankings for international travel brands, and recordings of all of our past webinars for free on our website. You'll also be able to find more information about Chinese marketing trends, our full suite of marketing services, and case studies of our work for clients. We regularly share news and updates about Chinese travel and digital marketing on our blog, on our social media channels, and in our monthly newsletter. So there are lots of ways to stay connected. At this point, we are ready to take your questions, which you can send in through the Q&A button on your Zoom control panel. And I can see there are already 2 questions.
2 questions. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, okay.
Oh yeah, they're both for you, and they're both very good. The Japan one I
Okay.
think is very interesting.
Yeah, Japan. So, I'm gonna answer the question of the provenance, these questions. So, which cities or regions they are from in majority. Yeah, on our platform, according to our data, most of our customers come from Beijing, Shanghai, Guangzhou, Shenzhen. and also some like Zhejiang and Jiangsu, and also Sichuan province. So I think most of them are come from, like just I said, tier one and new tier one, and some of tier two cities. So the second one is that traveling in Japan is popular among Chinese people, but they can't drive. Yeah, for Chinese travelers, if we don't have the IDP, definitely 100% we can't drive in Japan. But to solve these problems, we already launched our charter travel on our platform. So that means you can rent a car and a driver together, and you can have the same like experience, road trip experience in Japan. Yeah, with a driver, and but also
Wow.
you are a guide too. Yes. So this is like a kind of a new business on our platforms. So you can find it on our application now. Yeah.
Okay, I also noticed in the data shared by Ctrip about Chinese New Year that they talked about the rise in people hiring cars with drivers,
Yeah.
and that
Yeah.
Japan was a top destination for that. So that makes a lot of sense, since
Yes.
people can't
Yeah.
drive themselves and it's a popular destination that you
Yeah,
can
but
get a
also on
driver.
our platform, we have a lot of Hong Kongers and Taiwanese.
Mhm.
Uh, yeah, they will definitely love drive themselves in Japan. Yeah, maybe
I
twice.
see.
Yeah, three times a year. Yeah, on our platforms.
Yeah, and it's definitely a trend that I noticed in England pre-pandemic about people hiring cars with drivers, especially family
Yeah,
groups would
yeah,
get quite a large van and a driver. You know,
quite a large
they
van.
want to have the independence, but don't necessarily want to do the driving themselves. So they
Yes,
hire a
yes,
driver.
yes. Okay. Find more about. Okay.
There's a question about more data about China traveler numbers, especially to Italy. So um, we, I can't say specifically for every country, but we do regularly share information about Chinese outbound travel data. So for instance, basically all the information from today's presentation was originally a blog post where I kind of read all of the reports that were coming out about Chinese New Year and put the data on our website. I don't know that um, there was some information, I think, about Italy and long haul destinations there. Um, so yes, there's there's I can't guarantee every destination is covered by the information on our website, but we do kind of translate and share all the reports that we can find on our website and social media channels, especially LinkedIn. So if you stay tuned to that, you can find data there.
Yeah. And how about the driver license in Europe? It is enough to process an international driver license. There's no need to take any exam to obtain it. It's a little bit different situation in China. In China, we definitely need to use our organic driver license with the certified translation of driver license, and also the passport and the credit card to drive aboard. So in China, we need four materials to rent a car in European countries, but not, I think we were not any European country accepted that kind of method of travel or accept Chinese travelers driving there, like Poland and also Austria. So, so some of these kind of countries, they have they just forbidden for this. But most European countries and most like France, Italy, Spain, UK, we have quite a lot like booking there, like orders there. Yeah.
Thank you. There's a question about the recovery rate for the US and why it's so far behind other destinations. So a couple of things to share about that. Although the recovery is low, the US is still coming up a lot as a top destination. We saw that from a few of the OTAs for Chinese outbound travel over the Chinese New Year period. So the numbers to the US are still um, they're still quite strong, even though the recovery is not strong, if that makes sense. And we also saw from the Zuzuche data that it's a number one outbound destination for
Yeah,
self-driving travel. Um,
yeah,
the flight capacity between China and the US is still pretty low. It's still only around 30 or 31% of what it was pre-pandemic. And that has to do with rules from the US Department of Transportation, limiting the number of flights by Chinese carriers so that they like match up with the number of flights from US carriers. And so if the number of flights are so much lower, that restricts the number of people who can travel, and it also drives up the price for those flights because they're limited in quantity. So I think that is a major thing having an impact on travel to the US. And also before I think December, the recovery rate of flights between China and Canada was even worse. It was like 9% of pre-pandemic levels. The Canadian government lifted restrictions on Chinese carriers at the end of last year. And so the flight capacity has really increased very dramatically. So we'll have to see how that impacts traveler numbers this year. And then I think that will be an interesting way to see the direct impact of flight availability on travel. But we can see also just that there's so much relation between flight capacity and outbound traveler numbers. For instance, when we look at Southeast Asian destinations that haven't recovered very well, like Thailand or the Philippines, those are also the ones that have lower flight capacity recovery. And then the destinations that are now receiving more travelers than pre-pandemic, like Malaysia, they have flight capacity that's bigger. So I think maybe the flights are added because of the demand, but also the demand is there because there are more flights, and then that makes the prices go down. So there's a lot of relation between those two things. There's another question about commenting a bit more on spending for Chinese New Year for domestic travel. So the amount of spending for domestic travel, I think it was what, like 5.9% increase in numbers of travelers, and then a 7% increase in travel spending. So in that case, it seems like spending actually has grown a little bit more than the number of travelers. So that seems kind of steady and healthy to me rather than too muted. But I don't know if you have more comments on that, Keiko.
oh, we are gonna share our presentation.
Yes.
Yeah,
Oh
yeah.
yeah, is that a question? Yeah. Yes. So later today, I'll send everyone an email, and that will include links to where you can view all the presentation slides and download those if you want them, and also a link to the recording of this webinar. So you'll have all the materials. Okay, well, I think we're coming up to 6 o'clock in China, and as Keiko reminded me at the beginning, it is Lantern Festival in China.
Yes.
So I think better to let you go and celebrate the Lantern
No,
Festival. So
yeah.
thank you so much, Keiko,
Thank
for
you.
joining and your insights, and thank you everyone for attending today, and a very happy Lantern Festival to everybody.
Yeah, yeah. Have a good reunion with family.
Thank you. Bye,
Thank you.
everyone.
Okay, bye everyone.